it had been on my heart for a long time just for people to understand that they get that same tone and that same look of disgust everywhere they go. The fast food restaurants, the gas stations, they get it all the time. So every time they have that, and then they come into RER and we're speaking to them, they know they can hear that in our voice. It just instills in them more hopelessness. You're not worth it. You're not. You don't matter. You're not someone that deserves kindness. And it just, I don't know.
Hello, and welcome to the Art of Emergency Nursing podcast. This is where we share stories for inspiration, entertainment, and encouragement, because we all know emergency nurses have the best stories. Now here's your host, Kevin McFarland.
Hey everybody, Kevin McFarland here from the Art of Emergency Nursing, and thank you for listening to the podcast. I appreciate it. Don't forget, be sure to tell a friend about this podcast. That is how people like you find podcasts like this. And if you like it, chances are your friends will like it too. So tell them about something cool. I would appreciate it. Now, I told you in the last episode that I was going to be part of the first ever Nurses PodCon later this month on November 20th. I'll be joining a group of nursing podcasters for the first ever Nursing Podcast Conference. Some of your favorite podcasters are going to be there for a full day of education, live podcasts, and so much fun. I'm so excited to be part of the event, I can't even tell you. And you can be part of it too. If you're around Nashville and you want to be part of this incredible event, go to www.goodnursebadnurse.com and you can register for this conference. You can use the promo code AOEN Nursing for 25% off the regular ticket price. You can join us live or you can join us virtually. It is totally up to you. I hope you join us live because I'm excited to see some folks that listen to this podcast. So, if you would love to come watch a recording of your favorite podcasts, including Art of Emergency Nursing and so many more, you are going to have a blast at this conference. I want to take a minute and thank the sponsors who are making this Nurses PodCon possible. This includes Trusted Health, CBD Stat, Samuel Merritt University, Stoggles, and the Echo Stethoscope. Oh my gosh. I got to do an episode about the Echo Stethoscope because this thing is awesome. I'm going to check my Instagram for a discount on that Echo Stethoscope. Believe me when I say it is amazing. Anyways, let's get into today's episode. Today is the part 2 of the last episode that I released about Danielle, who came back from addiction and became an ER nurse. The story is just getting started. Holy cow, there's so much more to this story. You are going to love this episode with my friend Danielle. When you're using and stuff, there's just not a whole lot of folks that want to be there for you. And
Yeah,
I get it.
Understandably.
Like I get it. Like I understand.
Yeah.
I've been on that side of it.
Yeah.
And as hard as that is, it's like I get it. So
Which I feel like is all the more reason for us as nurses, but ER nurses, to be that person that's kind that they don't have anymore, because we're not their family member. We don't have to go through the manipulations and all the things that come along with that and a family member. That's not our burden to carry.
Yep, you're absolutely right.
I made this post, I don't know, a little while ago, but it had been on my heart for a long time just for people to understand that they get that same tone and that same look of disgust everywhere they go. The fast food restaurants, the gas stations, they get it all the time. So every time they have that, and then they come into RER and we're speaking to them, they know they can hear that in our voice. It just instills in them more hopelessness. You're not worth it. You're not. You don't matter. You're not someone that deserves kindness. And it just, I don't know.
One of the things I always tell new nurses is I always say, somebody loves that person.
Yeah.
Somebody loves that person. And it may not be you, may not be, somebody loves that person and somebody's heart's breaking every time they think about that person and what they're going through.
Yes.
And you don't know their life.
Yeah.
You don't know their life. You don't know what got them to this part. I remember talking to a woman who was a prostitute and a drug addict, and we were talking and I was like going like, where did this all start? How did this all go
Yeah.
wrong? And she was like, I was such a sweet kid when I was in high school. And I was like, I bet you were. Um, and we even had a young lady that I worked with as a nurse. She worked as a nurse, and I would love to know whatever happened to her. She worked as a nurse. She was a charge nurse, and she one of the things I picked up on is I picked up on that when there were people who were there who had drug issues. She was just hateful.
Wow.
She was just hateful, and she was just mean and just not
Mhm.
nice. And I remember going like, how could she? And I remember I talked to my boss about it one day, and I said, she's just hateful to people who have any kind of
Yeah.
substance abuse issues.
Yeah.
She's just not nice. And my boss is like, well, I'll talk to her and see what's going on. And yeah, she
Yeah.
seems like she's been, like a little bit different lately and not really sure what's going on. And a couple of days later, somebody found her in the bathroom with a needle in her arm. And
Oh
she
my.
was unresponsive in the bathroom. The hospital, the staff bathroom, she's unresponsive.
Oh my
Got
God.
Narcaned right there in her own ER.
Wow.
Which if you can imagine waking up and being like, well, this wasn't exactly how I thought today was going to go.
Right.
And saying I have a lot of explaining to do, and just that
Yeah.
realization of like, boy, talk about hitting rock bottom someplace.
Right.
And and I was always like, it was always just heartbroken. Like I was always just heartbroken, and she never got better. Like she was like for years, I would see her, and she'd kind of come into the ER, time and time as a patient.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
but she was, she was, she had a rough life. Like I remember talking to her and just being like, what are you doing? What are you doing these days? And
Yeah.
she's like, you don't even want to know what I'm doing for money. And I was like,
Oh my gosh. Wow, that's incredible.
yeah.
Oh,
Um, so your aunt takes a chance. She
yeah.
brings you in.
Mhm.
She brings you to her home, brings you into
Mhm.
her home, or brings you to her city,
Yeah.
and wants to give you a chance. And at that time, how pregnant were you?
About 6 months along. Yeah,
Holy
I got
cow!
here. Yeah.
Your aunt's a saint.
I know. Yes. Yeah.
But how did that go?
It went good. I mean, like I said, she was married at the time. They were pastoring a church. Their home, I had my own bedroom and bathroom upstairs, so that was nice. I mean, it went well. Like it was good. They, you know, my aunt, I think she started working oh gosh, a few months after that, after I got there. But at the time when I first got there, she was, just co-pastoring the church. So she had a lot of time for me, which was great. And, so I got a lot of that, just nurturing, I guess, that I needed, love that I needed. So yeah, that really helped. And, she was there when he was born and, you know, cut the cord. And so it was
Amazing.
nice.
So were you able to stay clean from that point till the birth?
Yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. And actually, I smoked cigarettes still when I got here, but not for very long. She was like, no, absolutely not. And I'm like,
You're like of all
this
my
is way
addictions,
better.
you're
Right.
like of all my addictions, this one's not the
This is
worst.
not, yeah. But I did. I had quit smoking cigarettes and before he was born. So that's good. And so yeah. And my doctor at the time, when I went to that 28-day rehab, they set me up with a doctor and everything. And I was very honest with him about everything. I was like, this is my past. That's what I've done up until this point. I needed him to know so that he could care for me and my son in the best manner possible. And he was so kind to me. And he was like, well, good for you. And he was just very kind. He treated me like a human being. He was not like, oh, yeah, he just,
It's got to be hard to have that conversation.
right. You're like, oh, yeah. But he was,
It's got to be you're like I'm going to just get it all out here because you need to know what you're dealing with.
yeah. Well, one thing I've always been is extremely open and honest about my life. probably to a fault sometimes, but
Yeah.
yeah. So, and I knew that that was the right thing to do. And, and he told me, he's like, well, when the baby's born, just expect social services, because he has to report these things, and that's understandable. But they came in and they talked to me and my aunt, and everything was fine. But, yeah, and he was perfect. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
No long-term effects. Seems
No.
okay. Good.
Oh yeah. He's
What a blessing.
oh, my baby.
And how old is he now?
He's 8.
Holy cow.
I know.
Wow.
Yes. So I was big and pregnant. I got out of that rehab. I went to church. My husband at the time went to that church. Obviously, we weren't husband and wife yet. I was huge and pregnant and not trying to date at the time.
I would imagine it's kind of an awkward time to date.
Right. I'm like, yeah. So, that never, no. But I knew he went there. So, whatever. But 6 months passed, and he had stopped going to the church for whatever reason. He went to a different church, um, but my aunt, because I thought he was kind of cute. Whatever. My aunt was like, you should call him. You should, ask him to go to coffee or something. I'm like, and I was like, okay. So I did, and he had 2 sons as well. He has 2 boys. So, it wasn't that big a deal that I had a son. And so yeah, we just started dating, and things moved rather quickly. So, which was great because my aunt ended up moving out of state, but that's okay because I had myself a husband already. So it worked out. Yeah.
So how long
Yeah.
did you guys date before you guys got married?
Like 6 months, maybe.
Okay, that's pretty short.
Yeah.
Pretty short.
Yeah.
So.
He had the 2 boys, and he is my son's dad. Like,
Yeah.
100%. And we were talking, and we're like, we don't want to have more kids. Like, first of all, I'm not a spring chicken at the time, I'm surely not now, but I wasn't then either. We were like, so I went to the doctors to get on birth control, which I had never done in my life, never, because I'm not really living responsibly.
And I was gonna say, like, for everything else you were doing, you would think that at some point somebody would have had the conversation and going, hey, how about a little birth control?
Right. That would have been, yeah. So I didn't, but I was at my appointment, and I was literally strolling my son out the door. And they were like, wait. I'm like, what? Like, it's positive. Yeah. Cause you got to get tested before they're going to go put you on, birth control. And it was very faint. She's like, maybe you're just like 4 to 5 weeks. I don't know, but you're pregnant. I'm like,
and this is how old was your son?
oh gosh.
This was after your son?
Uh-huh. Oh yeah. They're 18 months apart. So.
Holy cow.
Right.
And so okay, hold on. I'm just make sure I'm clear on the timeline. So you have your son.
I was still breastfeeding.
Meet your husband. Did you meet your husband like before or after the pregnancy?
Before, or not before the pregnancy, but while I was still pregnant.
Still pregnant when you guys started dating? And,
no.
Or no.
Okay, so no. Met, while I was
gotcha.
pregnant.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had my son, and
Okay.
we started dating after that. So.
And then you were like, okay, probably a good time to start thinking a little bit more responsibly. And you're
right.
like, but they're like, oh, but wait.
Literally pushing my son out of the door, and they're.
You may have been just a little too late for this appointment.
Yeah. And I cried, and it was like, it's this like, nonprofit Christian organization that, that I was at. And so it was really cool because she prayed with me. And so that was great. And, but yeah, very shocking news. It was shocking.
Weren't quite expecting that.
No, not at all. So that was definitely it was a blessing. Of course, looking back now, can't imagine my life without her, but whoa. But yeah, so yeah.
Oh my gosh. How funny is that? You're like, hey, I should probably get on some birth control. You're like, hey, we should have this conversation last week.
Totally. But yeah. So yeah. And my I was completely clean, sober, all that. And then my husband knew that I, knew my past and everything. And I I guess I can look back and know it, like, it started like with a dinner date with him, and he had a beer and I was like, I'm I'll just have a glass of wine. Oh my gosh.
Oh no.
Whoops. I mean, and of course it did not, you know, go downhill right away. It was here and there until it was not always here and there. It was more than I should be. I did not go down the path that I did before by any means, praise God. But obviously when you're an alcoholic or any kind of an addict, you can't have one. You cannot, no, no, no. It's not an option anymore. And you have to find resolve with that, or you're gonna face.
Oftentimes you hear people say once an addict, always an addict. And I think there's some truth to that.
Right. Yeah.
Like certainly I could see where you can be like, you would probably be easily slip right down a bad path.
Well, yeah. And so, I mean, that, and I was still in
But
school.
just alcohol.
Yeah.
Just alcohol.
Right. Yeah. And I was still in school trying, I was still doing this prerequisites for nursing, trying to anyway. Um, I feel like I was getting C's, I was barely getting by, but I was still doing it. Um, and then I had my daughter, had a surgery after that. So, it was just hard. And I mean,
Now, when you started drinking again, any thoughts of being like, hey, what used to feel pretty good?
well,
Like any thoughts like, back in the day.
yeah, I mean, of course, yeah, of course. But, that, yeah, that was not, that did not come into play, which was,
Good.
it was just a different environment. It wasn't, I was in a home with a husband and I had a family, and it was, you know what I mean? It wasn't like just me drinking and feeling like I should go do other things. So,
Yeah.
but I
Was your
mean,
and your husband, you said your husband was a drinker
not,
or
no, not like
we'd have a
me.
beer or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He was like, whoa.
that's probably a better way to say that than saying he's a drinker, but he like him having a beer, and not that there's anything wrong with that because there's not,
No, but
but
yeah, he could
some
just have
people
a
can do
beer.
it and some people can't.
That's absolutely true. So, yeah. So, I mean, yeah, I wasn't like, it was not like it used to be, nothing like that. But, even just drinking a little bit does not, wasn't a good option for me. Um, and then, so yeah, just struggling through school, being a new mom again, like so soon, and just,
Yeah.
so school was hard. I struggled through school. I failed a semester, um, after I had my daughter and surgery, and I was just like, oh my gosh. And I was like thinking, I gotta keep going, you know. But I had so many doubts along the way. I didn't always have that, I'm just gonna do it and it's gonna work out great. You know what I mean? I didn't have all that always. So yeah. So, just everything, being a new mom, just everything. It was school's
Overwhelming.
hard, yeah, for sure. But I kept going. I kept doing it. Um, yeah. But then again, part of my story, which I had a neighbor, friend of mine, we were really close actually. We met and we were just, we talked all the time, and really nice girl. So she had asked me if I could watch her kids. She had 3 kids and I had my 2. That morning, um, I called her. They were like, "You want to go outside, out back?" We had a fenced in, whatever, backyard. And they used to live next door, so and we still talk. But anyway, they played outside all the time. It wasn't like and I called her and I was like, "Hey, is it okay with you?" I wanted to make sure it was okay that they actually were able to go outside, if that's fine with her. And she said yes. And we had a pool, the above ground kind of pool. And I took the ladder out, pulled it out, obviously, put it far away from the pool. I went in to the house and I remember going to the bathroom I had pulled my shades up in my bedroom to be able to look out to the backyard. And I sat on my bed and I know I checked my phone, and I mean, it could not have been more than like 5 or 7 minutes that went by, and her son is at the my bedroom door, and he's like, "Just said she's in the pool." Um, I, obviously got up very, very quickly, and I ran out there, and I jumped in, and I got her out. Um, I brought her in, got to my phone, called 911. They were trying to kind of talk me through CPR, which I didn't know how to do properly at the time. Sorry. Next to losing my daughter, I can very confidently say that was the worst thing that's ever. um, yeah. So I did what I knew to do of CPR. Paramedics got there. They took her. I left the area. So they could do what they had to do, and um, um, you know, I thought maybe she will make it. But she did not, and I I really spiraled.
I bet. Holy shit. Like,
Um, that was like a I yeah, I didn't know how to even begin to cope with that. Um, so yeah, I drank a lot, a lot. Um, I was, you know, had to go to the hospital several times for um withdrawals, and it was so bad. Um, it, yeah, it just
meanwhile, here you are with 2 kids of your own.
yes, yes, yeah. I mean, you know, there's no way to go through something like that and not completely blame yourself. There's not any possible way. Um, so things got bad. Like they were bad with my
I bet.
drinking, and it was bad. Um, I did fail that semester following, not surprising.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was trying to see a therapist, or um, he was not. He gave me pills, pills to help me.
Yeah.
um, Ativan, and
Yeah. Probably know what a former drug addict needs.
right. Oh, right. And he was not quick to ask about my history either, but and of course at the time, sure. So that didn't go on for too long, thank goodness.
Wow. Holy cow. I can't even imagine like anybody, even without history of depression and addiction, and so you have gone through what you've gone through, anybody would struggle with that. Like anybody would. And the fact that you survived that, the fact that we're here having this conversation right now is nothing short of amazing.
It's all glory to God, truly. That was in 2016. 2017 in January, things were, yeah, it got to the point where my husband at the time was working out of town, and he called his mom to come and get my kids. And he told her, don't bring them back until I'm home, just so that, he had some kind of peace. That was it. That day,
Ah,
I was like, no, nope, I'm not doing that. No. And I
mm.
know that I surrendered to God before, and I know that He helped me before, and I don't know how to explain the difference this time, but something in me broke. Um, he breaks chains, and I no longer drank. I have not had a drop since that day.
Oh,
Not one. He took that from me. He took it from me. Like, it's not there anymore. I have no desire, none. And then, even at the time, I was smoking cigarettes, but I was trying to do my Bible studies. And but I couldn't go do a cigarette break and really feel like I was getting into the word, and really, so I was convicted about that. But he took that too, like it was within
wow.
days. So I was on my way to my appointment, and I can't explain, some people don't really know how to describe. I just knew that the Lord was impressing upon me to tell my school what happened, because I was like, oh my gosh, I knew I was done with school.
Yeah.
They had already sent me that letter that, no more federal aid. You're, the fail, when you fail so many classes, you don't qualify anymore. So I already knew that that was kind of the case, and I just accepted that. I just accepted that I was done with school, and I had, all this debt and no degree. And it made me physically ill to think about school, knowing that. But like I said, I was on my way to that appointment. It was 3 days after I quit everything, and I was like, Lord, is that really you? Like, should I really call and tell them everything that happened? File an appeal, basically.
Yeah.
And when I got home, in my mailbox was a letter from the school, and it said financial aid on it, which for me was like, oh yeah, that's God. Like, whoa, okay, because I hadn't heard from the school in a long time. And um, I knew it was just a letter, like kind of updating me on my next steps to kind of do the exit counseling, do you do for loans and stuff. But for me, I took that as confirmation to contact the school and just see and just try.
And how soon after the death was this? Was this like
This was January of 2017.
right around the same time? And
Yeah. No, 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 no,
or
no.
no, like later?
Later. The drowning happened in June 2016.
Okay.
And then that whole rest of the year was
Just a
a
mess.
mess. And
No.
then it was, yeah.
And one of the things I didn't ask you, were you drinking the day that happened?
No, I wasn't. And so that, gives me some kind of, I was absolutely not. No, I
Good.
was, responsible for kids, and I wasn't, no way. Um, Especially, other people's children. So, and
Yeah.
it hadn't gotten that bad. So,
Good.
no.
Good.
Thank God, because that would
Right.
be,
That would have been, yeah.
oof, yeah.
I
So,
can't even imagine.
yes. But no, I wasn't. So that, yeah, that helps, I guess. But that following January is when I called the school. And when I did call the school, the lady picked up the phone and she literally said, "Thank you for calling whatever school this is." And it was the name of that little girl. She has a very uh, unique name. And again,
You're like, are you serious?
I don't know. I knew that I knew that I knew. And I did. I filed the appeal. I gave him everything that happened. It was granted, obviously. I even was refunded for that semester. Um,
Wow.
and I vowed to not stop. I knew that it was God. And so I did. I poured myself into my schooling. I didn't get less than a B. I got,
Good for you.
it took me, I guess, what, two more. Oh my gosh, I should be a doctor by now. How long I've been in school or something more than just, I look back and see all the things that I've gone through and done. And I'm like, okay, whoa. Like it's
Yeah.
not, I don't, I don't take a lot of credit. I said yes to God. That's what I did,
I
you
mean,
know?
a lot of there's so many different places where the story could have ended in a very different way. And man,
I
like
know. I know.
crazy.
I'm so grateful. But yeah, I am going to school and applied for the program. And even then, when I did a background check, I'm like, oh no. I mean, there were so many times during the process that I'm like, surely that, I was holding my breath and just like, oh no, oh no. Um, but yeah. And I had to do a lot of work to get that felony. So I had it expunged. My record was expunged. Um, and So when they asked me, when I was filling out my NCLEX paperwork, um, I was like, no, never been convicted. I mean, I thought it was gone. No, no, no. That's not how it works at all. I did it early on in the semester because I was like, I was kind of anticipating some kind of a roadblock
I would
considering my
imagine, I would imagine that you were thinking to yourself, like, this might not happen.
totally, absolutely. I was like, oh my gosh, what if I did all this for nothing? And I did. I got a letter back from the board of nursing. They're like, so you know how you check no? Well, there's this, and this. There was obviously my drug paraphernalia charge was on there. There was a time that I had gotten arrested, pulled, I had a warrant, tried to tell the cop I was somebody else, but totally batted it. And and he's like, but he charged me with like some kind of a false, I don't even know. And that was on there. I'm like, oh my gosh. And then a bad check that my husband and I first wrote when we were married for a veterinarian bill
Holy
for
cow.
this kitty we had. It was on there. I was like, oh my gosh. I was so disheartened.
But sure enough, so did you have to go before the board of nursing and say, okay, let's talk about this?
So what I had to do was I had to not only write a letter of explanation myself for all of that, one for each thing. I also had to retrieve certified court documents for each of these things and the end result of them. I called about this bad check that I wrote when I was like, I mean, it was like for $70. I called them and they're like, oh, you have a warrant for this. I'm like, oh my God. Like I hadn't felt that feeling in so long. I was like, oh my God, what? Like what? It was just oh my gosh. But anyway, obviously I just paid it and it was resolved. But yeah, it was like quite a process to get all that, and it was during the pandemic. Everything was closed.
Of course.
Uh, it was rough, but you know what? Step by step by step, I got all of my ducks in a row and I mailed this packet off to the lady that was, doing the investigation of my criminal background on my birthday. I was checking the board, all the time about my stat as far as the legal part goes. And on my birthday, I found out that that mark was checked, that I had passed the legal part. So I know, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna sit for my NCLEX. So I hadn't taken the NCLEX yet, but now I could. Now that was out of the way. So yeah, it was just yeah, it was insane, insane.
It's a lot of stuff to go through just to sit and take a test.
I know, it was crazy. Yeah.
Holy cow.
So.
Oh, man, you've come a long way. How are you doing now?
Good. I'm blessed. I love my job. I love that I get to do what I do. Me and my husband just bought our first house, so that's
Congrats.
so exciting. I'm my kids, they're going to a Christian school and they know Jesus, and I'm blessed. I will never go back. Like I will never go back. I can't believe how far he's brought me. I'll never take that for granted, you know.
Yeah.
So
How do you think your background affects your nursing practice? Like how do you think it makes you a better or worse nurse?
it affects me better that I know that I have empathy for, you know, those that are struggling with addiction, or just kind of the people that, get thrown to the side. Um, I don't know that it makes me a worse nurse, but um, I think more with my heart sometimes than with my head, I suppose. As far as like if you want to, the critical thinking aspect, so I'm I've been told several times by nurses I work with, you're too nice, you know, which I don't think is, I'm like, thank you. That's not a bad thing in my opinion, but yeah, I don't, maybe the critical thinking isn't at the forefront always. It's, I mean, you know, I don't know. I think it makes me a better nurse. I don't know a lot of nurses that have gone through that, what I've been
I
through.
don't either. I don't either.
So,
And I know a lot of nurses. So now, so when you go to your employer, like when you apply for a job, do you disclose all this stuff? Do you say, hey, here's what you're gonna find when you run my background because the
no,
board of nursing
because they aren't going
all
to
gone,
find it.
all gone.
It's, yeah, the board of nursing does a background check like,
Like,
wow, like,
yeah,
whoa, I didn't even know that happened. What? But, your state, like, then no, that's all, you know, and they only go back 10 years. My original charge in 2005. So yeah. So no, I don't put, yeah, I was a felon once, but what happened was, no, I didn't. However, funny story, you know, obviously working at my place, you become friends on Facebook. And so somebody had commented on my story like from a while back. So, like that happens, it pops up again in your feed.
now, what the audience may not know
Yes.
is that you posted something on Facebook about when you posted a picture of when you were in jail
Mm-hmm.
and probably at the time very much addicted and
Mm-hmm.
not living your best life.
Right.
Kid next to a picture of you now where you look amazing and happy and you have an RN at the end of your name and you're doing amazing things. And you posted that on Facebook, and that a lot takes a lot of guts. It takes a lot of guts to say, hey, here's where I was and look at me now.
Yeah. But again, it's the only point of that was to give God glory. I don't look at my story and where I'm at right now like, look what I've done. Look how far I've come. I know what allowing God to change your heart and your life will do. And it's this is called being a new creation in Christ. I'm not who I used to be. I'm not. And I know that it's because I've surrendered to God completely.
Now I know you shared that. I know you shared that in a nursing group.
Hmm.
That's right. That's where I seen it.
Yeah.
Did you share that just on Facebook in general?
Yes. So I put it on my personal page,
Your
and
personal-
again, this was a year ago.
And
And, and again, lots of kind, because, especially people that that know me are like,
they're like,
'cause what?
they're
Yeah.
like, oh, huh? What?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah. Um, but when my story came back in my feed again, I'd been working almost a year now at the ER. And I was like, should I post this again? Like, and I'm like, yes. Why wouldn't I? I'm never going to stop telling the story of how God changed my life. Then I'm taking credit for wherever I'm at, people
Yeah.
need to know. So I edited it to update where I'm at now. I'm almost through my RN to BSN program. I've been an ER nurse for almost a year now. My husband and I bought our first home. So, just that's where I'm at today, Um,
Come a long way.
yeah. But it's funny because on my personal page, I'm friends with some people on my work now, So when someone commented on it,
You're like,
I
oh,
know.
yeah.
And of course, the comment was nice. They're like, "Oh my gosh, I had no idea." And oh, wow, that's really, and I'm sure. But positive feedback again. I'm sure that there were some that read it and were like,
Yeah.
yeah. And I don't know if they did or not. No one ever said anything, but my manager and my boss, I became friends with a little later on, but my actual boss has already commented on it and read it. And she's like, "We're grateful to have you as a part of our team." And that means a lot,
What one thing, and boy, just for anyone listening, I don't recommend if you're a boss to friend your people, or if you're people to friend your boss.
Yeah.
I worked for someone that I worked for someone for a long time, and then when I stopped working for him, we became Facebook friends, and then when I went back to work for him, he was like, he unfriended me, and I'm like, seriously, dude, you unfriended me?
Wow.
And he's like, oh yeah, we're not, no, I can't have you working here and be your friend on Facebook.
And I get that.
Love you, think the world of you, but you are not going to be on my Facebook friend list.
And I
And
totally get that.
and
I saw
then
that she had so many of our nurses as friends. I was like,
you're like, how bad could it be?
hey,
The cat's out of the bag, as it were.
yeah.
Cat's out of the bag. And that
And I'm
seems
okay
to be
with that.
okay.
I'm okay with that. Yes, for sure.
What a cool story.
Yeah. It's amazing. I'm grateful. So grateful. It's exciting to do what I do and be on the other side of so many things,
We see a lot as an ER nurse. You're going to see a
Yeah.
lot. And the thing I'll tell you is, you're probably already aware of this because you've already probably been put in this place, is ER nursing is it's an emotional job.
It is.
So you gotta have your head on straight. Otherwise
Yeah.
it will fuck with you.
Yeah.
Like it can fuck with you. Excuse my language. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
It can really mess with you.
It can.
And unless you're strong and good and solid, like, that's something to always be aware of. And
Definitely.
the good news is, though, is you got a lot of ER nurses out there who go through and do the same thing you do, and go through
Yeah.
and they may not have walked the same mile you walked in your shoes, but
Right.
they're, they
That we know of.
we know of. And you never know.
Yeah.
You never know. You
Yeah.
never know people's backgrounds.
Mhm.
I really appreciate you sharing your story with me, and I'm honored that you would. And I think people are going to be really, I think it's going to be a good story for people to hear, because I think
Mm.
you never know who that person that you're there with
Yeah.
is or can
Yeah.
become.
Yeah. True.
So
Well, I appreciate you reaching out to me as well. Hold on. Let me